There is a specific kind of silence that fills a room when a child realizes they are the only adult present. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a quiet dawning. You're 8 years old, looking at a parent who is emotionally absent. Perhaps it's depression. Perhaps it's their own unhealed trauma. Perhaps it's just a constant, distant gaze that tells you they are somewhere else. And in that void, a profound shift occurs in your young psyche. A new rule is written. Stability depends on you. This is how a person vanishes, not from the world, but from themselves. They laugh on cue. They swallow their tears. They become an expert in forecasting the mood of any room they enter. They become the designated keeper of the peace in their home. They become a miniature grown-up long before their emotional world is ready for that weight. And the outside world rewards this performance. You're so reliable, they say. You're so capable. But nobody ever pauses to wonder, what is the price of this armor? This is the hidden sorrow of the early mature child. And in this discussion, we will explore the inner world of that person, because these echoes do not fade with time. They live within you. They travel with you into your friendships, your work, your very sense of value. And if you cannot name what occurred, you will spend your later years reenacting the very coping mechanisms that once protected you, but now drain your spirit. Let's begin with the developmental mechanics. When a young person must provide emotional support for their caregiver instead of receiving it, this is known as parentification. The child becomes the comforter, the negotiator, the confidant, the guardian. This is more than just unbalanced. It fundamentally alters the nervous system, because when a child is repeatedly tasked with managing complex feelings, their own or a parent's, it forges a state of hyper-alertness. You are perpetually braced for the next crisis. You learn to move without making a sound. You learn that affection is conditional, that you must offer calm to perhaps receive security in return. You learn that your own desires are an inconvenience, while the needs of others are an emergency. So you retreat, not from the physical space, but from your own emotional core. And in that empty space, a new identity is constructed. You become the easy child, the high performer, the listening ear for friends, the person who never makes a demand, and you wear this costume so completely that you, yourself, start to believe it is your true face. But underneath the surface, a deep pain persists. A longing aches because the young self you concealed did not disappear. They remain inside, whispering a silent question. Why was I left alone to carry this? You built a fortress to survive, but now you live inside the walls. As adulthood arrives, the manifestations grow more intricate. You might become fiercely self-sufficient. You decline support, create distance in relationships, or never fully believe you are secure in love. You might feel detached during moments of celebration because happiness feels foreign, unmerited, even threatening. You might find it impossible to relax because being constantly in motion is the only way you have ever felt valuable. And most painfully, you might not even recognize you are still operating from a place of pure survival. Because when turmoil is your earliest normal, your entire system learns to treat chaos as home. Tranquility feels incorrect, serenity feels like a trick, and love feels like a loan you will someday be forced to repay. This is the inner reality of a child, compelled to mature prematurely. It is not simple grief. It is a profound wound that reshapes your entire relationship with existence and, most critically, with who you are. Now, you might wonder, why would a child willingly accept this part? Because a child's need for connection is absolute, even if it means betraying their own authenticity. This is not a conscious decision. It is a biological imperative. In a landscape without protection, the child trades their real self for a sense of belonging. That is not a failing. That is adaptation. That is the will to live. But the great irony is this. The very strategies that preserved you then can become the cage that confines you now. So many of us move through the world as highly accomplished adults with a profoundly hurting inner child still steering the ship. We strive for excellence to feel worthy of love. We stay small to prevent being left. We care for everyone around us while secretly hoping someone will finally check to see if we are all right. And that quiet dream, that someone will finally see the fragility behind your strength, that perhaps you will be granted the grace to finally collapse and be cared for. That yearning does not belong to your adult self. It belongs to the child who never got to be careless. The initial move toward mending is not about solutions, it is about acknowledgement. Because until you fully accept the truth of your experience, you will continue to dismiss your own pain with thoughts like, "It could have been worse. Others suffered more. I'm functioning, aren't I?" But functioning is just another disguise. And in your deepest self, you know this. So what becomes of that child in adulthood? They become people who feel uneasy in quiet spaces. They become partners who are suspicious of kindness. They become perpetual supporters who cannot accept help. They become individuals who say sorry for their tears, who tense up at praise, and who mistake utter fatigue for accomplishment. This is the debt of an accelerated childhood. Because if your early years trained you to be resilient at the cost of being vulnerable, to be polite instead of truthful, to repair others while neglecting your own broken parts, then what kind of life do you build? You build an existence where you are perpetually waiting, holding your breath for an external signal that it is finally safe to exhale and break down. But here is the reality you must face. No external hero is coming to save the child you hid away. You are the only one who can return for them. You are the only one who can offer the words that were never spoken. You should not have had to endure that. You were only small. You are allowed to stop now. This is the entrance to shadow work. Not correcting, not achieving, not pretending the hurt doesn't exist with shallow optimism, but turning to face the exiled fragments of your soul and stating, "I am here with you now. I am listening, and I will not walk away." The child you had to bury is the adult you must resurrect. This is the process of reintegration, and it is arduous because it demands that you finally feel the sorrow you had no space for before. It demands that you sit with the anger, the grief, the longing for what was missing, to cry for the celebrations where you felt invisible, to grieve for the trust you lost while shielding people who were meant to be your shelter. But that mourning, it is not a sign of defeat. It is evidence that you are mending, because what was once numb is finally beginning to thaw. Now, let's examine how these survival instincts appear in your adult life, subtly, painfully, and often where no one else can see. You might become the counselor for every person you know, yet never allow anyone past your own walls. You might receive compliments on your self-reliance when internally you are afraid of needing anything from anyone. You might find yourself in partnerships where you overcompensate, constantly solving, organizing, justifying, and then feeling a simmering bitterness. You might find it difficult to set limits because a simple refusal still feels like you are letting someone down. These are not inherent character flaws. They are survival tools, learned, ingrained, and the hopeful part is, they can be unlearned, but only when you stop glorifying your endurance and begin tending to your injuries. One of the most profound actions you can take is to ask that inner child, "What did I need back then that never arrived?" You might hear responses like, "I needed to be told I was not to blame. I needed someone to notice my silence. I needed to be silly, to pause, to be joyful without a background of dread." And gradually, very gradually, you start to provide these very things for yourself, not to change your history, but to stop being a prisoner to it. This is how you cease looking for a caretaker in your romantic life. This is how you stop confusing constant worry for inner wisdom. This is how you end the flight from the child you once were and start walking toward the person you are meant to become. The philosopher Carl Jung once observed that we cannot reach awareness without confronting discomfort, that people will choose immense distraction to avoid looking inward. But shadow work requires that we look at all of it. The forgotten, the embarrassed, the fearful, the furious parts. Because healing is not a process of inventing a new self. It is a process of rediscovering the self you were before you were handed a script for your life. So, if you are someone who had to mature before your time, hear this. Your capability was never the issue. The issue was that it was not a choice. But in this moment you have agency. You can choose tenderness. You can choose to pause. You can choose to stop carrying the emotional weight of everyone around you and start respecting your own inner voice. And no, it will not transform in a day. There will be moments you feel small and scared again. Good. That is the entire purpose. Welcome that child home. Let them express their sadness. Let them be frivolous. Let them finally be recognized, because you are not damaged goods. You are on the path to completeness. And perhaps for the very first time you are finally maturing in the correct way. Not through force, not through anxiety, but through genuine self-awareness. You were denied a true childhood, but a full future remains. And on this day, you hold the pen. And if this exploration resonated with you, please support this channel by liking this video and following Winds of Thought for more journeys into understanding.